July 1667.
In the Dutch city of Breda, 2 signatures dry on a peace treaty, and 2 islands change hands. One clause leaves England a swampy harbour town of 2,000 people. The other leaves Holland a bare rock. The rock was the prize, 2 square miles of nutmeg. This is why a seed was once worth New York. To understand that deal, sail back 200 years to 10 specks of volcano in the Banda Sea. The Banda Islands, no copper, no gold, no armies, just trees and the most valuable fruit on earth. Follow one tree, 40 feet tall, in volcanic shade. Its fruit splits open and hides 2 separate spices. The seed at the center is nutmeg. The red net around it is mace. One tree, 2 fortunes. For 2,000 years, this tree grew almost nowhere else. These 10 islands were the whole supply on Earth. The Bandanese picked, peeled, and dried each harvest, and traded it as they had for 1,000 years. Their islands could not feed them, so nutmeg bought their rice, their cloth, their porcelain, their very living. Javanese and Bugis sailors carried it to Malacca's docks. Arab and Indian merchants carried it west, always west, and every hand it passed through kept the same secret. Nobody ever named the islands where it grew. Rome may have tasted it first. Pliny described a tree bearing nuts of 2 flavors. Scholars still argue. If it was nutmeg, and it may have been, Rome burned this spice 15 centuries before New York existed. What is certain, by the 600s, Arab traders were selling it in Constantinople. The secret still held. By the 1200s, Venice set its price. Nutmeg sat on Europe's banquet tables like a form of portable silver. Now listen to the price. A German merchant's price list, late 1300s, 1 pound of nutmeg, 7 fattened oxen. Not its weight in gold. Better, cattle, land value, a working farm traded for a handful of seeds, because it was never just a flavor. Doctors prescribed it for stomach and head. Apothecaries locked it away. Europe called it medicine, incense, an insurance against poison, a cure. Some swore on their lives for the plague itself. And through it all, the map stayed blank. Spice arrived from the east, and the east stayed silent. That silence was worth more than any fleet. Whoever found the source would hold the world's price forever. Every kingdom wanted the route. Every sailor feared the distance. Every merchant guarded his rumor with his life. Then, in 1511, a Portuguese captain seized Malacca and hired the local pilots who knew the way east.
1 year later,
3 ships under Antonio de Abreu followed those hired pilots east, straight into the blank. They passed Java, past Ambon, crossed a wide, empty sea, and where the map ended, volcanoes rose smoking. Aboard was Francisco Cerro, a soldier and a cousin of Ferdinand Magellan. He was the first European to stand here. The Bandanese did not run. They had sold nutmeg for centuries. Strangers with money were nothing new here. Cerro's men filled their holds to the beams. Nutmeg, mace, cloves. A fortune loaded in 1 island month. But buying was not owning. When the Portuguese tried to raise a fort, the islanders tore it down. For 80 years, Portugal kept coming back, paid the asking price, and sailed away. The Banda Islands stayed stubbornly Bandanese. Cerro stayed on in the islands, and he wrote letters home to his cousin, Ferdinand Magellan, in Lisbon. Those letters said, "The Spice Islands are real, they are rich, and they lie far east, maybe on Spain's side." Magellan read those letters and sold his king a plan. In 1519, he sailed west, chasing Cerros east. So, one nutmeg letter helped launch the first voyage around the world. That is what this seed could do. Portugal learned the lesson. In Banda, you bought at the islanders' price and left their politics alone. Customer, never conqueror. Then, in 1599, a different flag appeared off Banda Neura. 4 Dutch ships, 200 men, and a new kind of patience. The Dutch came quietly. They admired, they bargained, they signed contracts with the chiefs, and they measured everything. When their ships came home, the investors counted their money. 400% profit on a single voyage. In Amsterdam, that number did something to people. Merchants who had traded grain began to dream in spice. Cerros Islands had been found, bought, and mapped. Now they were about to be wanted, properly, dangerously wanted. In 1602, the Dutch government fused its squabbling traders into a single body, the United East India Company. Its charter read like a king's. It could coin money, build forts, raise armies, sign treaties, and wage war. A company with the powers of a state, built for one purpose: total control of the spice trade, all of it. And the charter's map already carried one small mark: 10 tiny islands, the only nutmeg trees on Earth. The VOC would become the richest corporation the world had ever seen. Its ships outnumbered every rival combined. It sent nearly 1 million Europeans east on almost 5,000 ships, and it came home carrying spice. 10 pounds of nutmeg cost under a penny in Banda. In Europe, that nutmeg sold at a markup of 60,000%. A house that smelled of nutmeg smelled like money. The Dutch built a golden age on that smell. But a monopoly needs the source. And at the source, the Bandanese kept selling to whoever paid. Javanese, English, anyone. The Dutch offered contracts, sell only to us. The islanders signed and kept selling, as always, to everyone. In 1609, Admiral Verhoef came ashore to negotiate under a flag of truce. The Bandanese ambushed the meeting. Verhoef died on the beach with more than 30 of his men. A young clerk named Jan Pieter Zoon Koen barely escaped. Koen carried that beach with him for 12 years. Remember his name. The islands would hear it again. Meanwhile, the English moved. In 1616, an East India Company officer named Nathaniel Courthope came ashore on Roon, 2 square miles, the westernmost Banda Island, and under a 1609 treaty, the one island England could claim. The Bandanese of Roon swore allegiance to King James. Courthope raised the English flag over the nutmeg groves. For 4 years he held on, short of food, short of powder, short of men, refusing every Dutch demand to leave. He fortified the islet offshore, ran the Dutch blockade in open boats, and somehow kept the groves English. The VOC offered money, threats, deadlines. Courthope answered every time with the same flag on the same rock. Then, one October night in 1620, Dutch boats caught him out on the dark water between the islands. Nathaniel Courthope died in the dark, shot in an ambush at sea. He was 35. England let Roon go quiet. His stand looked small. It was not. That flag became a legal claim, and claims outlive the men who make them. Because of court hop, England could say for the next 50 years, "We own one of your Nutmeg islands." And because of that sentence, the Dutch could never rest. A monopoly with a hole in it is not a monopoly. In 1621, the hole would be closed. Koen was already sailing south with a fleet, and he did not mean to negotiate.
March 1621.
19 ships, nearly 2,000 men, Japanese mercenaries beside Dutch soldiers, the largest force these waters had seen. Koen's orders were not complicated. Take the islands, all of them. End the argument that began on that beach. The Bandanese had no navy, no cannon, no walls that mattered. They had coconut groves, trade winds, the high ground. For weeks, they fought from the ridges of Lontor. Then the food ran out, and the villages began to empty. What happened next needs no dramatizing. The company record is plain. Villages burned, fleets of refugee boats chased down. More than 40 Orang Kaya, the elders who had signed, traded, and argued for 20 years, were seized at Lontor. They were tried by the company they had defied, then beheaded and quartered. Their heads were set on poles at the fort. The survivors were put on ships, some to Batavia as slaves, some back to the plantations they had once owned. Of roughly 15,000 Bandanese, only about 1,000 remained on their islands, most of them in chains. Others escaped to the outer islands where their descendants live to this day. The Bandanese did not vanish, but the Banda Islands themselves were emptied. A trading civilization of free sailors was gone in one season. Many historians now call it genocide. The word is still argued over. The numbers are not argued over. The company did not pause to look back. Before the year ended, it was drawing a new map of the groves. The land was cut into 68 garden plots, perken, the Dutch called them, each one rented to a company man. Each perk came with some 25 enslaved workers, owned by the company itself, brought in from across Asia. A plantation worked by slaves, run at fixed prices, a Caribbean system of labor planted in Asian soil. A few exiled Bandanese were even shipped home. Nobody alive knew the trees like they did, to tend the groves in chains. And the monopoly discipline was total. Every exported nutmeg was drenched in lime, so the seed inside could never sprout. Grow a tree without permission, carry a fertile seed, and you died for it. That was company law, enforced. When too much spice reached Amsterdam and prices sagged, the company burned the surplus in the street. Supply was the sin. By 1628, the machine was complete. One company, one tree, one price. Across the world, a city was about to need it. London, 1665. 400,000 people, the greatest port in the north. And something is wrong in the out parishes. In June, a diarist named Samuel Pepys walks down Drury Lane and sees two houses marked with a red cross. Under the cross, the words, "Lord, have mercy upon us." The plague is back, and London knows what that means. By September, the weekly bills count 7,000 dead in 7 days. The true total will pass 100,000. Nobody knows it is the fleas. London blames bad air, and anything that smells clean, sweet, or strong becomes a shield. People burn rosemary in their rooms. They chew tobacco. They carry posies. Pepys himself chews rolled tobacco against the fear. And they carry pomanders, little pierced cases of silver or ivory packed with the strongest smelling medicine money can buy. Inside many of them, nutmeg. The spice doctors had prized for a century, now believed to keep the air itself away. Fear is a market. That year, nutmeg reached the highest value it would ever hold, a fortune measured in an ounce. The wealthy fled to the country with their spice and their silver pomanders. The poor were sealed behind the red crosses. Watchmen locked whole families inside their houses for 40 days. The dead went out at night, by cart, to the pits. Pepys stayed and wrote it all down. The empty streets, the bodies carried past at noon, the silence after the bells. A fifth of London died believing, among many other things, in the healing power of the Banda seed. While London buried its dead, England and Holland were at war, their second in 15 years, over trade and spice. The Dutch had the better navy. In June 1667, they sailed straight into the Medway and burned the English fleet at anchor. The humiliation could be heard from London. England was sick with plague, poor from war, and finally ready to talk. But one more thread must be gathered before the treaty table. Go back to 1626, the other island in this story. That year, on the Hudson River, the Dutch bought an island from the Lenape. The record says 60 guilders of trade goods, not $24 of beads. That part is a myth, invented centuries later to make the purchase sound like a swindle. They built a small trading town there, New Amsterdam. When the English seized it in 1664, they renamed it New York. Now, both sides sit down at Breda. On the table, everything the war could not settle, including 2 islands, an ocean apart. The talks had dragged for months. Then came the Medway and the French invasion of the Spanish Netherlands, and everyone hurried. The Dutch wanted one thing above all, the principle of possession. What you hold, you keep. Uti possidetis, the lawyers called it. England had seized New Netherland in 1664, and the Dutch, in fact if not on paper, still held room. So the treaty froze the world as it stood that May. No trades, no swaps, just signatures over facts on the ground. That is the truth inside the famous story. Nobody handed Manhattan across a table. The paper confirmed what canons had decided. England kept New York, New Jersey, and Delaware. The Dutch kept Suriname and a small rock called Room. And the Dutch were delighted. Not resigned, not fooled, delighted. They believed they had won the war's real prize. They were not wrong. Rouen completed the nutmeg monopoly. Every tree on earth now grew under one company's flag. New Amsterdam was a fur town of 2,000 people. Rouen's groves alone out-earned it every single year. By the arithmetic of 1667, nutmeg beat Manhattan, and it was not close. The world agreed with the Dutch. The English signed with a consolation prize and a grievance. The Dutch signed, believing they had won the only prize that mattered. Nearly 50 years of violence had begun with one company's charter. It ended here, with one company's satisfaction. The treaty made the monopoly complete, legal, and eternal, or so the VOC believed, on the best day in its history. Remember what the rock bought. The first fort the Dutch built there still stands. They named it Belgica. Now hold the 2 islands side by side, the way the treaty left them. The full accounting the opening promised you. Roon gave the Dutch 150 years of monopoly profit, and the islands paid for every guilder of it. New Amsterdam gave England a harbour, a river, and a city that would one day outweigh all the spice in Asia. As one historian put it, losing the nutmeg robbed England of a spice and gave her the biggest of apples. The Dutch had the better bargain for 150 years. The English had the better island forever. But monopolies do not die at treaty tables. They die in plant nurseries, stolen seedling by stolen seedling. In 1769, a French botanist with the perfect name is about to reach the Banda Islands. Pierre Poivre, Peter Pepper. Poivre had tried for years. Now, with smugglers and night boats, he lifted nutmeg seedlings out of Dutch waters. Thousands of them. They went to Mauritius, French islands with French soil, and the company's lime could do nothing about roots. The monopoly had survived the Portuguese, the English, treaties, and wars. It could not survive a single gardener. Then came Napoleon. With the Netherlands under France's thumb, Britain simply sailed east and took the Spice Islands. In February 1810, Captain Christopher Cole led a squadron into the Moluccas. By August, he stood below Banda Nura. Fort Belgica sat above the harbour, the strongest wall in the islands. Cole sent Marines up its hill in the dark. On the morning of the 9th of August, the fort woke to find British guns on its own heights, and it surrendered. Britain held the islands for 7 years. Before handing them back, it dug up the future, nutmeg trees by the hundreds. They went to Penang, to Singapore, to Ceylon. British soil, British groves. The one-tree world was finished forever. And in 1843, seedlings from Banda crossed the world one more time, to a small Caribbean island called Grenada. Grenada's volcanic soil took to the tree the way the Banda Sea once had. The island became the world's second nutmeg. They call it the Isle of Spice. It puts the nutmeg on its flag, the only country on Earth that carries one. In 2004, Hurricane Ivan destroyed 9 of every 10 nutmeg trees on Grenada, 555,000 trees. A nutmeg tree needs 7 years to bear.
Keep the roots straight.
Grenada replanted
They will grow
anyway.
strong here.
It is still replanting. Some things outlast monopolies too. Today, Indonesia still grows most of the world's nutmeg. The world buys $200 million of it a year. A kilo costs a few dollars. The jar in your kitchen holds what a farm was worth. And nobody thinks about it. You grate it over rice pudding, over eggnog, over pasta, over spinach. The most fought-over flavor in history is now background. And the Bandanese? Their descendants live on the outer islands and in Banda itself. The people the empire could not erase. Roon is quiet today. A village, a beach, old groves. The trees still fruit twice a year, whether anyone watches or not. Manhattan is not quiet. The spice outlasted the deal. Both islands did fine. The people who grew it paid the price. So when that seed next dusts your dessert, remember, it was never cheap. Only the secret got cheap.